This is Brian Samborino, and you're listening to the Disruptive Consulting Podcast. It's my mission to help decision makers and business owners excel, so I'm bringing you some of the nation's top consultants and executives to break down the strategies that they've used to disrupt the average day-to-day process.
Who is your market?
Who is positive?
That's how do you typically reach their parents?
CEOs knew it wasn't working. That's why they just come in here. And she always comes up.
I cannot say enough great things about someone. And
Welcome to the Disruptive Consulting Podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, this is Brian with the Disruptive Consulting Podcast, and today's episode is a republish of an old show that I used to have when I was recording with the Greater Valley Chamber of Commerce. The name is FuelCast. It was hosted by myself and a colleague of mine named Brendan Carey. Brendan's a realtor, but he's a pretty funny guy. So, guest of today's episode, right in time for Valentine's Day. Her name is Jennifer Kneeland. She is a relationship counselor. I'm not sure if any of you have listened to Loveline, classic Loveline from back in the late 90s, early 2000s, but it's a big inspiration of mine, and I think that this episode is very Loveline-esque. So, drop a couple notes in the comments, listen, enjoy, and let me know what you think. Today we're here with Jennifer Kneeland, relationship specialist. Jennifer, hello, thank you for coming in.
Hi.
Please say hello, tell everyone a little bit about what you do.
Well, I've been doing therapy with couples, individuals, and families for 20 years now. And I'm also a sex therapist. Am I allowed to tell that?
Yes.
Of course, yes. Yeah. As long as you're not lying.
And I have 3 offices, and they're in Westport, Connecticut, Orange, Connecticut, and in Rhode Island.
How did you get to Rhode Island?
I went to URI, and then I finished up at Salve for my master's.
Awesome. What was your master's in?
Holistic counseling.
Ooh.
Yep. And it was very different like 20 years ago. That was really cutting edge. I remember telling my mom I wanted to go into counseling. She's like, great, because her best friend was a counselor. But I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to be a holistic counselor. And she was like, oh God, like angels, like what are you talking about? So finally was able to convince her there was actual validity to a lot of it, because really it's just kind of seeing the spirit as part of, life. So anyway, she now is passed on, but
I'm sorry.
But she was very, very, very proud of me when I graduated.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Guarantee.
Now I'm very spiritual, but years ago I was in high school and I remember making fun of this kid. His name was Scuba Steve, and he was we were maybe 8th grade or freshman, and he was like 22. So now I look back on it. At the time I thought he was cool, but now I realize he was a big dork hanging out with a bunch of 14-year-olds. And he used to tell everyone that he could see their aura. Mm-hmm. And I was like, get out of here. This guy's a wacko.
What do you feel about it now?
I don't know about auras, but I mean, you believe something, I'm not going to question it.
I just believe that we are made of energy.
Yes.
If we know that, and we know that energy doesn't die, then we know that and we also know that our energy can sometimes it can clash, and then other times you kind of feel more chemistry with someone. And so I think that it's about understanding who you are as an energy. And it's as simple as having awareness of that. Like, okay, what does my energy feel like right now? And then does this energy like being around that energy? And it's really basic.
I've been in situations where I only bring this part up because it's a relationship specialist, but I had an ex-girlfriend. We were sitting on the couch one night, and I'll never forget it. And I was so anxious, and I wasn't right in the mind, and I was like, I didn't have anything to say, and she sat down on the opposite side of the couch, and she was like, "What is wrong with you right now? I could feel the anxiety coming off you."
Wow.
Yeah.
You must have felt that from other people. Like, you can kind of just sense something's happening for them. Like, you can even just see them, and you're like, oof.
Yeah.
Right?
You got a calming feeling here. Like, we've done a few recordings so far. There have been some that have been a little bit more high stress, some that have been a little bit low stress. This one just feels like right in that middle, like that calm feeling.
Well, I like the low light.
Yeah.
It keeps the...
Yeah, they can see it
Like-
over there. So, relationship counseling. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what would classify, or what would someone need to see in their own relationship to be like, you know what, I think I need to see a relationship counselor?
I think, very honestly, most people need, or could benefit from, I should say, relationship counseling. I definitely think that premarital counseling is an absolute must, because I find a lot of couples forgot, honestly, to ask some really major questions.
Like what?
Things that have to do with family, how they want to manage families, input and influence in their life, whether or not they even want to have kids. Sometimes they start drifting apart because they didn't really discuss that.
Personal goals, business goals?
Yeah, spirituality is another one that comes up an awful lot. You say, oh, we'll see what happens, and then they might have kids and realize, no, I'm really not willing to, be Catholic or
Interesting.
convert to Judaism, whatever it might be. So I think that online, there are lots and lots of lists. Use them. It's free. Go through it with somebody, that you really care about, and see whether or not you actually have the compatibility that you think you have. Because what I think really happens is that when we are with someone, within about the first 3 dates, we have then painted on them who we think we want them to be, as opposed to who they are. And I feel like you don't really get to the truth of someone until you're about 7 months to a year in.
Wow.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
So 3 dates?
Yeah.
That's-
But within the first 3 dates, if you decide you want to stay committed to someone, you have already painted on them. You have already decided, hey, I like this about you, and that's all I'm going to see,
Wow.
And
That's fascinating.
so it's really important that when someone does something that feels wrong, that energy piece, if it's like, my instincts are telling me that's not a good thing, watch yourself from glossing over all of those things, because they'll come up later.
So what I'm taking from that is you don't need to be in a bad relationship,
Nope.
near breaking up or actually, divorce. It seems like this is a great preventative to get to that.
100%.
You could be in a great relationship,
Yes.
but it's still okay to go see someone like yourself.
Yes, I have a lot of clients that'll come see me, and yes, the divorce papers will be pretty much on the table. I remember one couple, literally, they put them on my coffee table, and they were like, can you help us? Made it.
Wow.
And they're still married. But then I also think that there are some people that come to see me, and they'll say, well, we don't, really agree about certain things, but we're not really that bad. And then after talking to them for a little bit, things aren't necessarily very rosy. So
Yeah.
and it's not that I'm trying to peel back things they're not ready for. I just think that when you start getting very real, you heal much faster. And so I don't think relationship counseling has to be years at all.
So that's a good point. You mentioned to me earlier in the day, you focus a lot on authenticity.
I do.
How so? Can you elaborate?
Well, in terms of relationships, or do you want me to talk about it in terms of dating? Because there's two different things.
Let's
there,
start
believe it or
with
not.
dating,
Okay.
and then transition into relationship.
Okay. So when it comes to relationships, authenticity it's as foundational as trust. So if you are not being true to yourself, if you don't know who you are, which I think is probably the biggest problem for 20-something-year-olds. Okay?
And 30-something-year-olds too.
So if you don't know what you value, and you don't really know what you stand for, then it's very hard to be able to say, this is what I know I want, right? So I think what a lot of guys do is they say whatever they think is going to make their partner happy. And sometimes that's not authentic to them, and they only can figure that out after they sort of uncover it a bit, peel it back.
Yeah, I've been there.
So that's the dating side. And there was one other side to that, it seems.
Well, that's relationship, but I also think that authenticity, even when people are doing the apps, the dating apps, I see a lot of my clients, they'll really not be at all like what they put on their ask. I'll ask my clients. They're like, I don't know why I'm not meeting anyone. Let's see what you're doing.
Yeah. You help with that.
Right.
Okay.
And so it's like, okay, let's see what you're doing. This isn't at all who you're presenting right now. So why are you doing that? And so I think it's really important, again, know yourself, market yourself as yourself. If you are trying to be something you are not, even if it's just because you don't want to be like your dad or you don't want to be going down a path like someone else you know, I just think that you have to present as who you really are. You'll find someone who's more developmentally appropriate for you then, because everyone has to find that match.
The development is key.
And you don't always have to be like this in life. I'm sorry, no one can see me doing that with my hands. You don't have to be completely at the same pace in life in terms of development and growth. Right. What you have to be are two people that are willing to keep working.
And that would happen through, I'm sure, good lines of communication, which a
Yeah.
lot of relationships don't have, especially the online dating. I mean, there's very little, interpersonal communication other than like a text.
Yeah.
There's no
And a
speaking
lot of
eye
emojis.
contact. And a lot of emojis.
Like, full, like context, everything being infused in emojis is just unreal to me.
I just started using emojis. I'm so
Right?
behind
You're
in the
way
times.
behind. I mean, because I'm going to be 50 this year, and so like I guess what it was very different for me, but what I see happening is just a lot of fear about revealing oneself.
With which population?
With, I would say, young adults.
Yeah.
And young professionals. I think that there's a lot more reticence to show who you really are, not right away. And so that, I think, I would love to coach all of you to stop doing that.
Were you asking gender there or like age demographic?
Age
Really?
demographic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm interested. Do your clients have situations that you think differ between maybe ethnicity or
Culturally?
Anything other than age group?
Absolutely.
Can you give us an example?
Well, in Indian families, there's a very different expectation that you can't really date outside of your culture.
Oh.
So, and the same could be said for Asian populations as well. I would even say that I'm from an Italian family, and I'm sure that my mom definitely would love for me to be with an Italian. I did end up with an Italian guy.
Oh.
So I think that we tend to go towards what's familiar, and it feels more comfortable there.
You're right. Have you ever read the book Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari?
Oh, yes, I did,
You
actually.
did?
Yes.
Do you remember that whole section that when he was
love
picking
him.
apart soulmates?
Yes.
And he said there's no such thing as a
No
soulmate
no.
because he referenced like back in the 50s, the girl, she'd be 16, and then by the time she's 18, she needs her independence. She wants to move out of the house,
Yep.
out of her parents' house. So she meets the guy within a 1 block radius that wants to take her on a date, and then
Right.
they go right into a relationship, start building a family of their own.
Yep.
Do you believe in soulmates?
Rationally, no.
No.
Spiritually, sure, because I don't question anything anymore.
Let's take a moment to highlight one of our sponsors, Peralta Design. A recent study found that the average person's attention span is only 8 seconds. Don't let wordy explanations lose you business. Peralta Design creates engaging explainer videos to educate your potential clients or customers about what you do without losing their attention. Whether it be live action or animation, Peralta Design will give your product a service of fighting chance in the information age. Don't let your business get lost in the crowd. Stand out with the video services provided by Peralta Design. We launch brands.
By definition, I don't think it's reasonable to assume that soulmates exist. I agree with the energy part of it.
You could be
You don't
compatible.
believe
You can be compatible, yeah.
Okay, this is my crazy thought, and it's not that crazy, is that I think that what if, before you even entered into this body that you're in, that you contracted to meet up with certain people? I consider all those people that I meet that it's like, wow, who are you?
Yeah.
Those are my soulmates. All
Okay.
of them. That could be a grandmother. That could be, a partner.
Oh.
That could be, a dog, whatever.
Best friend.
But this is someone
Huh.
that, like, furthers my soul in its evolution.
Okay.
Do you know what I
agree
mean?
with that, yeah.
I could pick up what you're putting down. I like that. Soulmates is a difficult thing, but I mean, jumping off to a different topic, what about like a relationship being exciting after a long period of time?
Ooh.
What do you think about that?
I think that if there is passion at the very beginning, it can always be rekindled.
Right. Passion.
It has to be hot in the beginning.
Okay.
Has to be.
Right.
If it's not, and it's a very low, slow burn,
Right.
those situations become far more difficult over the long haul.
You
It's
definitely.
100% possible. I think that it's all about novelty. So if you feel like, yes, you've gotten into some sort of habits and routines, and
Yeah.
sometimes that can happen.
Yeah, you can talk about whatever you like.
Yeah.
So that happens in sexual relationships quite a bit. And I know you're not just talking about that, but it's all about novelty. So do things that are outside of anything you've done together before. Sometimes I'll tell people you have to go to a rock climbing gym.
Okay.
You absolutely have to go do that. That's your exercise for the week.
Okay.
Or I'll tell them you have to go roller skating, or do something that it requires them to use a different mindset.
Okay.
And because they're utilizing a different mindset, they're seeing everything different. So we're shifting the perspective. And then they see each other differently again. And we also know, you guys ever watch Bachelor or Bachelorette?
The one with the roses?
Yes.
Yeah,
No, but
I've heard
Right.
of it.
I loved when VH1 used to have like I Love New York, Second Chance at Love.
Yes.
So like the Hood Bachelor.
Do you
I
remember
guess.
Flava Flav?
Yes.
Yes.
That was my
Flavor of
favorite.
Love. That was a
Flavor
great
Love.
one.
I mean, that was great.
Yeah, it was.
All right. So anyway,
We're gonna have to
what
pay
I
him.
what I do know that they do on that show is they put them in really intense situations, because what that does is it raises oxytocin, and then you feel the bonding more readily directly after that. So they make them jump off a building. Right after that, they're feeling all these amazing feelings of connection.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's why they fall in love so fast.
Thing.
Yeah.
You got a lot of knowledge in there. Did we talk about your history? Did we go over it? Did you tell us about your history? Well, how are you so qualified to talk about all this? You're like a relationship guru. What's that lady on TV that you see on the radio? Patty. She's like the go-to for sex counseling.
Yes, yeah.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I just love what I do.
Okay.
I love it very, very much. It's always been an interest of mine, and really since I was very young, people talk to me about their problems. And so really getting my degree just got me paid.
Okay. Okay. I like it. Honesty's important in a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I wouldn't change it for anything. And I say that often, like I could win the lottery, but I would continue counseling.
That's awesome. I mean, and that's true passion. You know, like that question that they used to ask in schools, and they talked about it on Office Space. You know, if you had $1 million, you know, what would you do? And your answer to that question would be what you should be doing for your
Yes.
entire life.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, somebody that would say, I would win the lottery, but I would
Right.
still help people, you know, with relationships in various forms. That's truly your passion.
There was another question that it's a career counseling question, like what you wanted to do when you were 7.
Okay.
And I wanted to be a solid gold dancer. You guys don't know what solid gold is, but it was like a show on TV, and so that was not true for me.
Okay. Okay.
But I laugh at the fact that I was really convinced I could be like this really big professional dancer.
Hey, you
When
gotta
I
have
was
dreams.
a kid, I wanted to be Arthur Fonzarelli, but I couldn't
Nice.
turn on a jukebox without a quarter.
You can't just hit it and turn it out.
I swear to God, I got so upset when I used to watch Nick at Night,
Yeah.
and every night they would have Happy Days on, and the theme song to Happy Days, Sunday, Monday, right? It goes
Happy
through the whole
Days.
week, yeah.
Yeah.
And then one day they cut Happy Days off Nick at Night and it moved to TV Land, and I remember I cried for about an hour. It was
Really?
not on, yeah.
Wow.
First, I shouldn't have been crying over that. I was in like 3rd grade.
Guess what I'm getting you for Christmas?
Yeah, Happy Days box
Yeah,
set.
the box set of Happy Days.
Well, maybe Fonzie was important to you.
He was, yeah. Love. The Fonz had all the women.
Oh,
Yeah, he had all the
all the
women,
women.
and he was a guy that stood up for things. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
something.
good character.
He was a character for you to emulate.
That's true. Wow, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Mm-hmm.
And that was before online dating, which is a great transition into women
Yes.
and men courting one another with online dating. How do we deal with it? What is a good strategy going into it other than authenticity? And how do we deal with being ghosted?
Yeah.
Because
Wow.
not me personally, but I'm sure some of our listeners will have had a couple Tinder messages and fallen off. What happens in those situations?
Yeah.
Wow, where do you start on that one? Oh, that was a 3-parter right there, man.
Well, you started with that you wanted to know about what it's like for men and women with online dating. Is that the question?
Yeah, courting one another.
Well, you guys could tell me more than I could tell you around that because I've been married for 17 years. But I think that
Do you have a relationship counselor?
I have in the past, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe in it. Absolutely.
Like a mentor or someone that actually, both a mentor and
Yeah.
somebody that was a healer?
They served both purposes.
Perfect.
So it worked out nicely. But she's in Rhode Island. down
Oh,
here.
you're inching closer to her.
So I think that when it comes to online dating, the most important piece is, and it's, I'm struggling because it's like, I don't know if you want to just talk about like the differences between men and women and how they approach it.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's start there.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because women approach it more like a game,
Ooh.
and
Ooh.
yes, and men approach it more like pursuit. I think that there are, of course, exceptions to every rule, but I think that what I see are mostly girls that don't really take it that seriously and don't really believe that it's possible to meet someone that way because of the prevalence of ghosting, because they can have people that are liking their, Instagram pictures, like a couple of those, and then getting a DM and then nothing, right? So I think that women be wise to give a little bit more time to talking to guys and not necessarily believing everything that they're offering right up front is something that they have to invest in.
That's interesting. Do you? Oh, there are a bunch of parts of that question. I'll get to
Yeah.
mine. Keep going. I feel
And
like
then for men, I think what I see are a lot of guys getting really rejected a lot. And these are great guys.
that didn't happen to Brian either.
And I think it's because there are these very different perceptions of the apps. So, women are kind of coming into it like with this suspicious kind of quality, and then the guys are going into it like, no, this could really help me. And because there's such a difference in their perception of it, I don't think it's a good match. I think what we also need to find are people that are representing themselves in ways that are truly interesting. So if you really want to, if you have a great sense of humor, please be funny. I think what a lot of guys do, I'm generalizing a lot here, but
That's fine.
is that I don't think that they're great at empathy.
It takes practice.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Doesn't
Particularly
always come naturally.
20-year-olds, okay? I think by the time, you guys clearly have worked on it. But when, I think that's a really difficult, prefrontal cortex isn't even fully formed, so until 25. So I think that what I see are a bunch of guys that will put themselves out there, but they don't really know how to connect on an empathetic level. And because women are looking for that, they figure these guys are never going to be really available. So there's a lot of discouraged men and
Empathy.
So
Yeah.
what do you
Okay.
think brings the women to the younger men on social media? So younger men typically don't have as much empathy.
Yeah.
We see oftentimes, I've seen it
either
in the past.
desperation
Yeah, desperation.
or,
Okay.
or just chemistry
Okay.
Or a bent antenna.
or a bent antenna. Right.
We still haven't gone over the ghosting.
Yeah.
We gotta wait.
And I just learned this new word, haunting. Have you heard about this?
No, what is
Oh.
it?
So ghosting is like when they stop talking to you, right? Never. And haunting is if they might like your Facebook post, or they might like something else, but they don't actually ever get in contact with you. So they just are keeping an eye on you.
Huh. That's a little sketchy.
That is a little sketchy.
That is.
Yeah.
That's a little
I think they're
creepy,
just kind
actually.
of waiting it out and seeing whether or not they want to back up. That's my guess.
I think that's a cue to not post your address online.
I agree with that 100%.
Take a moment to highlight the organizations that allowed this all to happen. If you're not yet a member and are interested in getting involved with the Greater Valley Chamber of Commerce, Fuel, or FuelCast, find out more about membership options and/or Fuel sponsorship by contacting us via social media or greatervalleychamber.com.
The dating apps. I mean, so there are a lot of different dating apps out there, and we know that. Is it as easily broken down as men are looking on these dating apps for sex while women are looking for a relationship?
not at all. I can't tell you how many guys I counsel that really are looking for connection. So funny story, my friend came up to visit from North Carolina, and she was on Tinder. She recently divorced, and she was like, hey, I'm going to show you how Tinder works, how quickly I can get some guy to come out and meet me. And I was like, okay.
Wow. Okay.
Uh-huh.
We should have done that tonight.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's a great idea.
That would have been awesome.
And so the guy comes out, and they don't hook up, nothing. He really just wanted company for the night. It was so clear. And I thought, like, I swear to God.
Company for the night?
For those that can't see, I'm looking in disbelief.
No, I'm sure he was like maybe interested, but like in the end, they just talked, and honestly, he had a shot, and he said no, thank you. So
Chivalry.
maybe he's, the exception, but I thought it was impressive.
Yeah, it's so impressive that I don't believe it.
I swear to God, it happened. I was there.
Oh no! I think we've met tons of people. We all know a lot of people. I think that there is a possibility for something like that. Did she ever? And then follow up. Did she ever talk with him again?
No.
No.
Nope.
Okay, so
that's what I mean. It's like he totally wanted to talk to her again.
Yep.
And she didn't.
And she wasn't interested.
No.
And this brings me to another point.
There we go.
She wanted an aggressor.
Yeah. Yeah, women in general do want a guy that knows who he is and will pursue and is committed to that vision.
So as a young professional, let's go from a male's perspective first. How do we walk that fine line between being an aggressor and being way too thirsty?
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah. Alpha male issues, I would call those. I think that you can share what your opinions are. You can open up, you can open doors and do all these wonderful chivalrous things, but I think that it has to come from a genuine place. It has to come from the gentleman within you, a place where you actually want to protect her and you want to be loyal and you want her to know that you are safe. If it comes from that space, you're going to be good. If it comes from, here's my ego and I'm going to tell you how great I am, then it's never going to fly.
Huh.
That's
and now
interesting.
what if we were to reverse that? How does a woman be aggressive enough, but not too aggressive, where we start to think things about her?
Assume things.
Assume things.
Yes.
Oh boy,
a
that's
good
hard.
one.
That's a hard one.
Do you
for me
have
to
any
answer.
experience in that? Because if not, we don't need to cover
No,
it.
because I think most of the women that I counsel would just do whatever they felt like doing.
Okay.
They're pretty empowered.
Okay.
I might have one or two clients that have definitely settled and been maybe too passive, but I don't know. I don't. You think women that are aggressive, you start thinking that they're loose?
No. First, I never said loose. Let's make that clear. No, I just.
What did you mean then?
I don't know. People build reputations. If they become
For
too much of a
being-
partier,
Oh,
or
okay.
if they're too much of a bookworm. If I find not me personally, if one finds an aggressive woman, they may think that woman wants it a little too much or something. right?
Aggressive in what way, though?
Too much, too frequent
Contact?
pursuit of a man.
Yeah.
Right? I guess
Yeah.
the exact same thing as if a man were in somebody's DM every night, different
Yeah.
people, right?
Okay.
Thirst.
Thirst.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's
I guess
interesting.
We don't really have an answer. It probably just applies to both sides, right?
Yes, but I would also say that wait to have sex. That's what I want to say. If you're going to do the online dating thing, wait at least 3 dates.
I was just going to ask how long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait at least 3 dates. Do you know why?
No.
It's because when we are intimate without an emotional bond, it creates this discord within us. And so we will be compelled to either withdraw
Okay.
or become extremely needy. And I think that's what you're talking
Ooh,
about.
That is.
Yeah. So like
Brian's
maybe
also
you
not
hook up
needy.
really quickly and then she's super thirsty, right? Like, hey, when? She's trying to fill the void of the lack of emotional bond that had been created.
Wow.
Interesting.
That is really
That's
interesting.
really interesting.
Yeah,
Well, we're learning a lot right now.
absolutely.
Let me see. You talked about one thing, and we touched upon the word, and we talked about it a little bit before, but like chivalry. I mean,
Yeah.
holding the door and, waiting, for, we'll say 3 dates,
Yeah.
before you before, having sex and, first kiss, maybe not doing it that first time or that second time. But I mean, I don't know if I'm moving away from chivalry. I mean, have you seen, we've heard chivalry is dead. Chivalry is dead. What have you seen in the relationship world when it comes to that?
I think it's a weird time for men.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you? I swear I'm not trying to corner you, but
No.
I just think it's a weird time for men. It's like there's, because of the Me Too movement, there is a lot of female empowerment, and I think that that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think it's displaced men in a way
Okay.
that I'm not sure they know how to navigate through yet.
I could agree with you there.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's an evolution of that happening where I think eventually they're going to find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long do you think that's going to take?
I don't know. I would say probably at least another 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Think about how long it took for us to really get on board with, transgender bathrooms. And it takes us a little time, but it doesn't take an extremely long time for us to really evolve and get that this is all very important.
Okay.
So what I think is that guys, generally speaking, are, I really don't want to say that. What I want to say.
I want to know what that is. Can you write that down?
What I want to say is that they want to be able to be the protector, but they don't know the boundaries around that without it feeling like they're taking over. Does that make sense?
Like too overbearing.
Yes.
Like being a dictator, pretty
Yes,
much.
yeah.
When you're thinking you're trying to help.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so my advice to guys is to trust their instinct around that. If it feels uncomfortable, if a woman is like not comfortable with whatever chivalry you're extending towards her,
Yeah.
then back away from it.
Okay.
But if it's true to your being and you absolutely have to open the car door, then keep doing it.
Okay.
You know about the door trick?
No, what?
No, the door test.
Well,
From
that
Bronx
Bronx Tale. Yep.
Yeah. Do you know what it is?
That was.
No.
It's so Sonny tells Lazaro, take my car, pick up this girl. He takes her on a first date, and the test is he unlocks her door, lets her get in, and if she doesn't reach over and unlock his,
Yep.
dump her.
Done. So I have one in my office. It's similar.
Ooh.
So I have my tissues. If the wife starts to cry and the guy doesn't get her a tissue, then he very likely lacks empathy.
Wow.
I would. There are guys that just wouldn't hand a tissue over.
Uh-huh.
Really.
A lot.
Really.
Yes. And it's a really huge predictor in my book of whether or not they're going to make it.
Oh my. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to study that.
Like my jaw is on the floor. Like that is. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, do you care about this person?
Yeah, I feel like that's a clear sign that you don't care.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
What an emotional connection.
Yeah. If one of you started crying right now, I have tissues in my office.
I'd
And we're not even
I
dating.
got one on the table.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good
Got my
like that.
sleeve if
Thank
you need
you.
it. So I mean, we kind of talked about the chivalry. What about like first dates? The proper. Well, okay, we could say proper first date.
Isn't the proper first date someplace like really public and not very much of a big deal?
Should be.
If
Yeah.
that's what you say it is.
Yeah, it is. That's what's for women. I think that's definitely the safest bet. For men, yeah, you don't want to be anywhere that requires you to, get in a car together and go long distances or anything like that. I would keep the first date to like coffee.
Has that always been? Would you have suggested that to somebody pre?
Nope.
#Me too.
No.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. First
Because,
dates
I mean-
used to be a very big deal. There was like flowers and
Yeah.
coming to the door and meeting
Yep.
parents. It was a whole very different situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
But not anymore.
There isn't
I'm
like
in shock.
yeah.
I feel those emotions when I was dating.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, even in a professional setting, it feels weird for me to shake hands with a woman. So I shake hands in the initial meeting, and then after
Yeah.
that, give them a little hug, hi, goodbye, right? And I'm not kissing them on the cheek or something like that.
But you're a hugger.
But exactly, it's a lot more friendly, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
feels a lot
Yeah.
more natural.
It's connection.
Yes, but at first, there's some that meeting a woman for the first time, I'm always a little, maybe I
just don't
shouldn't should I shake hands? Do I give a hug goodbye? Maybe it's one of those awkward one-armed hugs, but then I feel real awkward. Maybe she's short, you know what I'm saying? Now I got the head on the chest, and I'm not sure if I
You're
did
slamming your
something
shoulder
wrong.
into her
Yeah.
face.
Yeah, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Wow.
That's an interesting point.
I didn't know that it was that big an impact.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Jesus.
Yeah, the last, 20 years, very, very different. Social media was not even on the radar.
So we're saying 20. So that first date advice, that's not just post Me Too. Let's say 3 to 5 years. That's 20 years. So that's not just Me Too. That's the
Yeah.
development of social media,
Yeah.
World Wide Web,
Yep.
the internet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I misinterpreted
Yeah.
that. I thought that it was a direct correlate to this.
No,
Latest movement.
It's changed the way that we relate.
Okay.
It has. Completely.
So people more guarded, you think?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I asked my daughter, who's 16, just turned 16, I asked her, what is the thing that you're most afraid of in terms of dating at some point? And she was just like, being catfished.
Being catfished. So like led along. For the people that don't know, can you explain catfish to us?
It's when somebody represents themselves as someone that they're not. So it could be that they show pictures of somebody else, or really yucky versions is just that it might be an older man and going after a very young child. So
Is he putting out pictures of a young individual to this
Right.
person? Okay, so it's like really misrepresenting yourself, not just like I'm a
Exactly.
successfully extremely rich businessman, and then
Right.
you're not.
You're bum.
Okay.
And if you haven't seen the show The Circle, which is on Netflix, I want you to watch it. It's not like heady, it's just entertaining because it's an experiment on social media and its impact. And there was a winner, but some people were catfishing and some people weren't. And it's just fun to watch how it all plays out.
The Circle?
The Circle.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
It hasn't
I've not
popped
heard
up
of
on
it
mine
either.
yet.
It's bubblegum, but it's fun.
Okay.
Oh.
What do you mean bubblegum?
It's nothing much, it's not
Oh.
like gonna like make your life better.
It's not
but-
heavy.
Yeah. And I wanted to also mention the other piece that I think you asked me like a long time ago, which was the different stages of relationship. And I think it's going to be really pertinent to what you were asking me when we hadn't even started.
Okay.
All relationships, I'm going to even like look at my notes because sometimes I forget exactly. But all relationships go through different stages. And I would say it's a cycle. People think it's one linear process. So we start off in what we would call the honeymoon phase, right? Everything's wonderful, and we really idealize our partner. And then we move in. I really do want to make sure I'm getting each one.
No, that's fine. I pulled up my phone because there was something that I heard on the radio the other day, and it had me dying.
Tell us about it while we wait.
Okay. I will. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea. So there was a term that was coined, I don't know when, we'll say in the last year. It's called hobosexual. H-O-B-O. Have you heard of that?
No.
Hobosexual. So this is someone that starts a relationship and gets into a relationship so that they can live at that person's home. Like they don't have a place to stay, so they just keep going from a relationship to relationship.
Hilarious.
Hobosexual. I was
Oh
like,
my
that
gosh.
is that is clever.
That's rich.
Yeah.
That is really clever, and
That's
I never thought about that. You
Yeah.
know, that is an interesting topic that they were bringing up. But
Years ago, my friend John was about to move to the city, and he found some story about. He was doing research on the city, and he found some story about a guy that did that same thing. He would just go to the bar. He was homeless. He'd go to the bar, meet women, stay at their place, maybe get into a relationship, stay there for a bit. It goes south, or they kick him out, and then he finds another woman at the bar. The
Yep.
same, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Wow.
He never had to pay for rent. He had like nice clothes and stuff, Wild.
man, that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
So you're loaded over there. I feel it.
Yeah. So the stages of relationship. So the first one is romance, feeling all that wonderful stuff. Most of the time with that, it's like you really feel like everything is magical in the world.
Okay.
That doesn't last that long, but again, we know that that's because of the oxytocin and some of the other like neurotransmitters that are being released because you're having this wonderful connection.
Okay.
Then you move on to the emergence of unconscious patterns, and so that's when you start to really show the real you.
Okay.
And those are the patterns that were put in place before you were even aware of them, right? It's like really young kid. You watch things unfold, and so those are some of the patterns that start to emerge. It's really important that if you haven't figured out what some of those patterns are, that is essential to good relationship. So that's why I feel like relationship counseling can be really helpful. And a lot of people haven't done that work. And so at that point, you're asking questions like, can I trust this person? Have I made a really terrible mistake? I don't feel comfortable with them as much as I did before. And every relationship goes through this. And then the third stage is you reach the choice point where you're either going to move into a conscious, loving relationship, or you're going to further yourself into, go deeper into the unconscious space. And that normally will involve like numbing out and just withdrawing.
Okay.
But the conscious choice means that you begin to sort of take responsibility, full responsibility for what's happening in your being, and you get curious about it. You're like, okay, I wonder why I'm lying, you know?
Okay.
Or I wonder why I wonder why I'm going to bed earlier than her, right?
Okay.
It's subtle things, but if you get curious about it and you begin to own it and you have real honest and loving conversation around it, it moves you into the co-committed, it's like a renewal phase where you actually feel truly like you have a partner in life and you have this safety, emotional safety that you wouldn't have any other way. And you feel like this continuous positive energy, like feed off each other in this positive way. So a lot of people think it's linear. Okay, we get to that stage and it's going to stay there. No, it never will. You will go through this over and over and over again. If you're really smart, you're going to figure out at the choice point how to get yourself out of the unconscious patterns and into the conscious ones. And then you'll move through it a lot faster.
Let's take a moment to highlight one of our sponsors, Peralta Design. A recent study found that the average person's attention span is only 8 seconds. Don't let wordy explanations lose you business. Peralta Design creates engaging explainer videos to educate your potential clients or customers about what you do without losing their attention. Whether it be live action or animation, Peralta Design will give your product a service of fighting chance in the information age. Don't let your business get lost in the crowd. Stand out with the video services provided by Peralta Design. We launch brands.
But is there like a stage, 3 to 6 months honeymoon stage, through 6 months to 12 months, and then you're in that, the oxytocin is starting to go down.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a time frame to those stages or no? It's every relationship's different.
I think every relationship is different, but I would easily say that if you're not feeling good stuff in the first 3 months,
Okay.
then move on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not going to be good.
Is there a specific age where you would suggest someone getting into a long-term relationship? It's like here,
When they know what they want.
but I hear about people that feel like they want to get married at 19, 20. Probably not.
I don't think we're mature enough. I don't think
Correct.
we have a sense of who we are well enough yet.
I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not going to judge. It's just not my job either. So
Sure.
if somebody feels really strongly about it and it could work, it could work. But
How do you think that affects the cycle that you just mentioned? Age.
self-awareness, whether or not you have the ability to reflect. It's that self-reflection that I think is not in place. And that comes with experience.
Yeah, sure.
And I say to people, you can have a very happy life if your values and your actions match up. If you are living in some way where you're not living in accordance to your values, you will be unhappy without question. Yeah, well, it's values plus actions equal happiness.
Values plus actions equal happiness.
Yeah, you want to always make sure that, and you know what I think a lot of people don't do is they don't actually write out what they value. Have you ever?
No,
Never.
never.
Right? It's like something I like really value a good sense of humor, and when I wrote it out, it was very high on the list.
Yeah.
So, and I look around at all my friends and my husband, and the things I love about them is they make me laugh.
Is it what you value in yourself or what you value in other people?
It's what you value in terms of how, like, what you're receiving. That's the way I imagine it. Like, I value sense of humor. I value honesty. I value loyalty, perseverance.
Okay.
These are the things that really matter to me.
I have an idea of the things that I value, but I've never written them out.
Yeah.
I feel like if I were to write them out, it would be helpful for identification if I were looking for a relationship.
Yeah.
But I also feel... Why are you laughing at me?
I thought you were dating someone.
No, I'm saying
Oh,
if
okay,
I were
okay.
looking for a
I see,
relationship,
yeah,
then
yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think it's important to live your life from that space.
yes.
Agreed.
Right?
But I also feel like it may set up too high a standard if I were doing it. I'm a little bit neurotic. So if
Okay.
I were to say, okay, I want only a blonde who's loyal and also makes a lot of jokes.
But those are characteristics. That's different.
Hmm.
Right? Values are different. Values have to do with like our essential being. I think that's the other thing that I want guys and girls to do when they're meeting up with people for the first time. Look for their essence. Stop looking at the picture in front of you. Tune into like what is this? Do I like what they're? I guess it's like a vibe. Do I like the vibe? Do I like their essence? Because everybody's going to look very different 20 years from now. Everybody. All right? So you guys too. I know you don't want to believe it, but you will. And so you just want to be with an essence that you just like to be around.
Boom.
Yeah, that's great.
That's.
I've never called it an essence.
Can we touch on cheating?
Cheating happens for a few different reasons. It's either that you want out of the relationship and you don't know another way. It's that you actually are craving a different sexual energy or a different sexual partner. And then sometimes it's not really focused so much on the sexual, it's looking for emotional connection that they're not getting.
That's true. I've heard that. I don't know where, but yeah, the women search for, and I don't want to generalize, but I am. Women search for more of the emotional connection. Men might search more for just that physical connection. But I mean, it can go both ways.
Yeah. I see a lot of like midlife crisis males finding young women that revere them. They don't necessarily they don't want to marry these young girls. They like young girls, these young women, but it's they like the feeling of being so adored.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have a funny story. I
Yep.
know he's never going to hear this, so I'm going to tell you the story. But I know this guy, unnamed.
yeah,
He had a midlife crisis. He bought a Corvette,
yeah.
and when she found out that he cheated, she spray painted like cheater on the side of his Corvette.
There you go.
And then he had the paint removed, car repainted. Sometime later, let's just say a year for the sake of it, she found out that he cheated again at some point. So she spray painted his car, cheater, on the side of the same car. And he showed up, no car. And my buddy said, "Where's the car tonight?" And he said, "You don't want to hear about it." And he told the story. And I said, "Why don't you stop buying spray paint, you idiot?"
Yep. It's just novelty.
Yeah.
And-
Something new and exciting.
Yep.
It's got to be it.
Exactly. But in order to heal from cheating, it takes an awful lot. And it's totally possible. And I don't want anyone thinking that it's not, because it really is.
So if you had to generalize, you don't have to, but if you were to, how long have you seen the recovery take from a relationship being hit with a cheater?
Yeah. I say cheating or any other major betrayal. Because betrayal with cheating or betrayal, like he spent all this money without asking me, or she spent all this money without asking me, or told other people, private business. Like betrayal feels the same across the board. And so when you break that trust, I think that it takes at least, for at least about 1 to 3 months, you're in mostly shock. And it's a terrible time, and most people feel just raw and terrible. Then after that, once they have done some work and are in therapy, they'll get to a space where they can feel a little bit more trust, a little more stable, but it takes a full year at least.
To heal from cheating.
Yeah, and I would say you've marked the relationship for life.
Okay.
So it will require incredible transparency from that day forward.
So we're saying that you can salvage a relationship
Yes.
where there's been cheating.
You can.
In your opinion, and you may be biased, do you think it's worth salvaging at that point?
I think everybody's different. Some people have kids,
Right.
Different situations.
Different situations. Some people can't move out, so they try to figure out solutions to the problem. So I think, you have to ask yourself, like, is this essence, or is this person, the person who I believe I'm truly in love with, is that person contrite? Is that person truly wanting to seek forgiveness? If those answers are yes, then there's a good chance you can make it. But if someone is like it's not that big of a deal, makes lots of excuses, maybe even blames you, move on.
Move on.
Yes. That's one of those questions.
Do you know who Dr. Drew Pinsky is?
Yes.
All right, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah? Oh, we're going to talk after this
Yes.
show about that. Do you listen to his podcast?
Sometimes, yep.
Classic Love Line. Better example.
Yep.
So he would say, someone would call in, I asked my girlfriend if she wanted to have a threesome with this other girl. He says almost every time, why are you trying to sabotage the relationship?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're a firm believer?
Yeah, I've worked with not a lot, I'm going to say at least 10 different polyamorous couples or thruples, and I can tell you none of them made it.
Wow.
Really?
Not one. And that's not to say that I don't think that if somebody really wants to, create that kind of a very intentional and open relationship, they should do that. It's not a judgment call. It's so hard to even negotiate with one person. That negotiating with more is
You're right.
really tricky.
Could you imagine all the hair you'd have to vacuum up with 2 girlfriends? Insane.
Oh.
My hardwood floor looks like a carpet.
Oh, that's a good one.
So we're almost out of time. I have a few questions that I'd like to ask. A couple that I ask everyone. See if Brendan's got anything.
Okay.
So first,
We want to do a generic question or just anything?
if you have anything left that you want to ask Jennifer.
Oh yeah. So I mean, you did say that you are a sex therapist as well, or a specialist. If you were to just sum up in a paragraph, and it might be really difficult, but if sex in a relationship, short-term relationship, a relationship 3 months, 6 months, 50 years. Well, what would you? And I'm trying to figure out the right way to ask it. I'll have to dub in something different. But
Okay.
what are your beliefs in sex in a relationship?
I think I mentioned before that there should be a significant amount of passion to begin with. Otherwise, it's difficult to sort of cultivate that later. If you get together with someone and you're younger and you're less experienced, then that's understandable. But that I think can wonderfully evolve. I do think that sex really changes when you have children, and I don't think a lot of people talk enough about that, particularly to the 20-somethings, that it's wonderful to have kids, but most of the time there's a significant reduction in how much sexual activity is going on for a while.
After you have children?
Yes.
Okay.
I would recommend that you get back on the horse, if you will, very quickly. But not everyone can do that. Sometimes people have trauma,
Okay.
so they can't resume
Okay.
the activity that they used to have.
I feel that was such a poorly asked question, but
Yeah.
on such a topic that we could take up
Yeah, sorry.
another whole hour
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. Everything changes. Every stage there will be a different challenge in terms of your sex life. That's what I can tell you.
Okay.
At the stage that you guys are at right now, I think that you have really great opportunity to explore and have lots of fun, and I would encourage people to do it so that when they do find the right person, they can say that they've experienced everything they wanted to.
Totally found the right person.
Yeah, and I really believe that. So I have 3 questions.
Okay.
And I'll start with this. Do you have any advice for a young professional trying to get into the counseling field?
Know that there's this thing called secondary trauma. If you don't really have a way to sort of buffer yourself from all the stories that you're going to hear and the pain that you'll be exposed to, it's probably not for you. But if you are someone who is like I said before, someone everyone wants to talk to, it's not very difficult to find yourself a really great master's program, and I do believe in coaching as well. I know some people are coaches and don't decide to go get their master's. That's great. Just make sure that you actually learn enough about how to truly relate and do good therapy and coaching before you just wing it.
Start toying with other people's lives.
Yeah.
You have to have passion for helping.
You really do. It has to be, I think it has to be a vocation. It has to be a calling.
All right, question 2. Who is your favorite author and why? This is not just for you, by the way. I ask everyone.
Tom Robbins. I don't know if you guys know.
I don't.
Okay.
What does he write about?
Skinny Legs and All is one of his books. Jitterbug Perfume is another one of his books. He's just a really trippy writer, and I loved the trips I'd go on when I would read his books.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
Fiction.
Okay.
But really wrapped into these narratives about how you can become like this more evolved person.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of fiction
Yeah.
mixed with some self-help.
Yep.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, final piece of advice. If a young professional were to ask you what is the most important thing you would tell them about getting into or maintaining their current relationship?
I think be truly yourself. Figure out who you are. Don't rush it. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you figure it out by being really honest and taking time to check in with yourself and check in how things feel and then sharing that. That's what authenticity is, and that's what's going to direct you and connect you to the right person.
Wonderful.
I was expecting work-life balance.
Oh, there's that.
All right, so let everyone know where they can find out more about you.
Or send hate mail because there were some tough things said before.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
www.consciouscounseling.com, and then also you can find me on Psychology Today and Therapy Den. Honestly, just find good therapy. That's what I want for everyone.
Do you have social media?
Yes, but it's Conscious Counseling on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That was Disruptive Consulting. The opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the company, guests, or sponsors. Disruptive Consulting is a presentation of Tangible.